Hello friends and welcome to Figure Study, where even though it's really warm in here, I am still drinking hot tea like an idiot. I may have a problem. Anyway, today we are taking a look at another thing from Webdiver, as I suddenly find myself with more than just the one Golemon figure that I used to have. Now we're taking a look at Webdiver Pegasion. I don't know how this is pronounced. It's basically Pegasus with ion or eon at the end of it, which is pretty much how Webdiver names everything. I just don't know how it's pronounced. But yes, I'm going to go with Pegasion because that's how I've heard it referred to like once, and it's a little bit less awkward to say, I guess. I don't know. But Pegasion is a 6-wheeled moon buggy thing that's kind of weird looking, but it's kind of got its own little charm. The wheels don't quite line up, but they do sort of subtly taper inward, so there's at least a line that they follow. It's got gaps, it's got obvious limbs, and it's a little bit of imagination is required. This guy's, he's not as smooth, let's say, as some of the other figures. And it doesn't necessarily get any better in his other mode, but it is what it is, I guess. For what it is, it's fine. It's just an interesting thing that I never really saw that many people talking about, so I figured, what the heck, I'll grab one when the grabbing is good, and now I have this weird thing. The coloring is not bad. The kind of vaguely off-white, it might be a little faded, I can't quite tell, because you've got some painted bits that are a much brighter white. So I don't know if that's what it's intended to look like, or if this was always that color, or if it's faded over time. But the white plus the somewhat metallic, dark turquoisey blue and the almost burgundy red, it's a color combination that works. I kind of wish that we actually had more red and more turquoise instead of just so much white and gray, but for the little accents that it provides, it looks fine. It's a mess in back. It's okay from the side. It's okay from the front. It gets the point across. It is a bit messy and not much to look at from below, but it does, as I said, get the point across. I don't know really what else to say about this because it's kind of, as I said, kind of a mess. It's not the most solid of vehicle modes. I mean, there's a little bit of silver for what are probably headlights and a bumper, I guess. And then the dark plastic for the windshield, which is actually translucent because if you push the little IR button, that thing blinks and lights up inside. Some white, some of that metallic-y turquoise, which looks really good, and then we start getting into robot mode bits. So yeah, it's I don't know, it's not a whole lot to talk about. Though, I will say, I am impressed with the fact that with the wheels here, all the wheels do this, where instead of just being this dull gray plastic like they could have done, they actually painted the inside white and painted the little lines around the rims this metallic turquoise color. And it's not just a solid line either. It's like they went in and did every little piece of, I guess, technically tread. I don't really know. It's cool that they detailed it like that. The overall design of the buggy is a little bit lackluster, but it's fine. It's a, roughly 15-year-old toy. Things are going to be awkward sometimes. Anyway, here is Pegason's buggy mode with a Transformers Deluxe, and it's a bit bigger. I mean, he's got that gap in the center, but overall a bit bigger, definitely a wider wheelbase. But at the same time, I'm not sure if it's necessarily any more complex. That's up for debate. And here is his buggy mode with the duck tank. And that's going to do it for the buggy. So let's get this guy transformed up. First, I'm gonna take his swords off. And I know I don't normally cover accessories, but it's a Webdiver figure and not one that's talked about very often, so I figured why the heck not. So with that out of the way, let's get to the transformation proper. And just like that, here we have Pegasion in his robot mode, and it's different. I will give it that. It's different. I do think it's a little funny that you've got a Pegasus unicorn thing that they also decided to make a centaur. So you've got a half horse, half horse. Sure. It's also really awkward in terms of these wheels being everywhere, particularly on the elbows, because those just get in the way and they don't look great. And you can straighten out his arms, but it still doesn't really look great. And it's great. It's got bicep swivels, but it kind of sucks that the arms don't actually move out at all, which means that when you try and bring the arms in, they bang into this section down here. So you kind of have to bend the arms to get around that, and he's awkward to pose. He's definitely awkward to pose. The legs are also kind of limited because these back legs only go forward this much. They will not go any more forward because they bump into this post here. So that means he's stuck at this angle, and you can either line up the forelegs to go with that, in which case it looks like he's leaning way back, or you can kind of try to have him just hunch forward a bit, which looks a little bit better, but still not great. So yeah, he's a bit weird. It's also worth mentioning that he is in fact a quad changer. He has his Buggy mode, his Pegasus Centaur mode, and then he also turns into an alternate arm and an alternate head for Ditalion. Since I don't have Ditalion, I'm not going to be transforming him into either of those modes, but you can kind of see hints of the alternate head in his chest plate here, because that is definitely a face. That is so much a face. For clarity's sake, when I was doing the transformation, I did hinge the face up. You don't have to do that. I just do that because it makes rotating this bit around a lot easier, because I don't have to worry about this banging into anything. But yeah, that's that. If you want to, you can actually lift it up and hinge it up here to make it look like he's got some kind of big chest plate. And there's a little bit of detailing there that kind of works with it. And this, I don't know, it's like, I kind of like how this beefs up the chest, but it restricts the arm articulation even further, because now you've got these nubbins kind of right where the shoulders turn. But I think it looks alright. I think it's a cool option, whether it's official or not. But when you hinge it down, you get some of that like long horse neck detailing, so it works either way. But yeah, overall this guy is something of a mess. It's got an immensely busy and cluttered silhouette, for one thing. Posability is extremely hampered. His posture is weird if you try and get him to stand the way his feet seem to want to stand. He's got a hole in a very bad place to have a hole. And it's just awkward. I don't dislike him. I actually think the colors are still really cool, for one thing, and he's just different. No matter how much I may gripe and nitpick about some of the stuff with this guy, there's no arguing that he's unique, but he is definitely a bit awkward, and it really, more than anything, what bothers me the most about this guy is the fact that his arms can't move out. And normally, constricted articulation isn't necessarily a huge deal for me, but here, it really would just make it so much easier to move his arms, because they just keep banging in here, and I don't like it. I'm just going to bring his swords back to get him properly armed up. And the swords are okay looking, kind of nondescript. It's a little weird that the chopping section of the sword has this kind of block molded on it, but okay, sure. I don't know enough about Webdiver to know why that is. And yeah, he's, I mean, you can kind of get him into sort of dynamic-ish poses that might seem dynamic to a degree, sort of. It's is weird, but you can do it. You can have him kind of looking like he's getting ready to take a swing at somebody, I guess. It's something. It's about the most dynamic you can get this guy looking, but yeah. As I said, it sounds like I'm ripping on this guy a lot. It's just, more than anything, I just wish that he wasn't quite as chaotic as he is. But for what he is, I think he's okay. And I think he's interesting from a curiosity standpoint. All right, let me get him back here for size comparisons. Here he is with a Transformers Deluxe in robot mode, and despite being weird, he's tall. There is that. Granted, there's so much going on down here that's like extremely thin and kind of a cheat. So it's like all of his mass is pretty much like this front section and then the entire upper body. But yeah, height-wise, he's taller than a Deluxe, I guess. So you can say that about him, I guess. And here is Horse with Duck Tank. And because why not? Here he is with Webdiver Golemon, and Golemon is massive compared to Pegasion. And I mean massive in the sense that he's got a lot of mass. Like, he's a little bit taller, but there's so much more substance, like physical substance to Golemon here. Granted, Golemon's made up of two different figures, and Pegasion is just the one, but still. Also, guess which robot mode I like better? So yeah, Pegasion is... I don't regret getting him, because as I said, there's that kind of curio aspect to him, and there are certain elements of his design that I think are cool. I like the colors, even if the balancing is a little weird, even if the white seems a little faded. I do think the colors are cool. Some of the molding is cool. The idea of having a kind of centaur horse is weird but silly, but he's, as I said, kind of a chaotic mess. And it occurs to me I did not actually properly look at his head, so let's do that real quick. The head is a robotic unicorn head, and I don't understand why he's called Pegasion when there's nothing about this that says Pegasus. Like, he's a unicorn. He's not a Pegasus. He doesn't have wings. There are no wings on this thing. I don't get it. It's not a bad head, and it's, definitely goes along with the uniqueness. He's got that kind of technological circuitry design going through some of the vaguely organic looking bits. The coloring up here is nice as well, and I kind of like how there's this vague hint of a knight helmet visor going over where his eyes are. And I mean, the horn is interesting, but it's not what makes a Pegasus. But anyway, yeah, it's a unique design. There is no denying the uniqueness of the design, but it's a bit on the messy side. But that's fine. I'll live. As I said, I don't regret getting him. I just think he's weird in kind of a charming way. But what do you all think of Pegasion here? If any of you have any Webdiver stuff, where would you put him in terms of everything else? I mean, personally, from what I've seen, I would still put him above Jaguaron, because Jaguaron just looks really not great to me. But Pegasion also doesn't look super great. But anyway, that is going to do it. Whatever your thoughts on any of these matters, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And while you're at it, also feel free to like, subscribe, or if you're feeling generous, you could buy me a coffee. Any of those things would make me a happy Rob. And remember, art, no matter how abstracted, is more than meets the eye.